Welcome, everyone, to today's 15-minute ILTA YouTube podcast entitled Innovation and Growth Mindset for Legal Professionals. I am your moderator, King-Sellars of Counsel at Gunster, and I'm thrilled to be joined by our distinguished panelist, Charisma Starr, who talked with me about this at EDI this past fall. Kieren, what are you doing here?
Charisma said that she could not make it, so I decided I'd fill in.
Do you even know what we're here to talk about?
Yes, I had that. We are talking about fixing my mind.
So close, sweetheart. We are going to talk about growth mindset versus fixed mindsets, which is based on research done by Carol Dweck. For anybody out there who's interested in more, lawyers tend to have a fixed mindset. What do you think that means? What do fixed mindset and growth mindset mean to you?
Personally, I see someone with a fixed mindset as someone who believes that their intelligence, thought process, and problem solving is all static, where someone with a growth mindset, on the other hand, would be someone who adapts when they fail at solving a problem.
That's pretty close. That's really good. Charisma must have clued you in a little bit. One really interesting way to see this, to literally see this, is to look at this picture of brain activity that the researchers did when examining growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So this is the recording of microvolt, like electrical activity in the brains. And this is what is happening when the fixed mindset group is told that they got something wrong. And the growth mindset people are told they got something wrong. You can see the growth mindset brain is lighting up, right? It's curious. It wants to understand more. It's thinking about what did it miss? What does it need to know? Where is it going to go from here? And the fixed mindset is sort of, okay, moving on from that now. So I
It's
think that's
almost as if
helpful.
the person with the fixed mindset was able to ignore their failure.
Well, I think even more than able to ignore their failure, in a fixed mindset, you're pretty much choosing to ignore it. You're choosing to put it aside and walk away from it. So it's a very different approach, right, to this idea of failure.
And on the other hand, the people in the growth mindset group are starting to kind of wonder why they failed, where they went
Exactly.
wrong.
Exactly. And more importantly, the people in a growth mindset rarely think of it as a failure. They actually see it as an opportunity. They actually see it as this moment of something they are going to go learn or figure out instead of a failure.
Interesting. And why does that lead you to believe that most lawyers have a fixed mindset?
Well, first of all, mindsets fall on a spectrum, just like introverts and extroverts, right? Nobody's a complete introvert or a complete extrovert. Everybody has fixed mindset and growth mindset in different situations or with different people. Lawyers as a profession do seem to operate much more in a fixed mindset. And I think that's probably because we're very competitive, we're very aggressive, we want to win. A lot of the work that we do is very high stakes, especially for our clients. So that's a lot of pressure. You're trying to solve something for somebody else who's paying you to do it. We're meant to be experts, right? You call your lawyer and you want to show up as an expert. You want to show up as somebody who has the answers and is going to make this work. And so part of that is your persona. You can't let that shell disappear sometimes. And we are trained to be risk averse. We are trained not to get into situations that might have bad consequences. And when we do, it's difficult because that is something we are taught to avoid completely. Also, we bill by the hour. And so we're trying to do the work the best way that we know how. That might not be the best way, but you probably don't want to pay me to go figure out a better way to do the work. That means I either have to set aside time outside of the work I'm doing for you, unpaid, unbillable time, to think about these problems and have something of a playground that's actually workable for me to think about new solutions, right? But just like you wouldn't want an airline pilot, right? Flying the plane and coming up with new solutions. You want that, you want those checklists, you want the fixed mindset. I want airlines to go out and find new solutions, and they invest because they want to make more money, do it better, faster, cheaper.
Right, but in law, you guys are so reliant on precedent and looking in the past and seeing what happened and having that be repeatable. So
You
if
are,
that's what's going on in the industry, don't you want all of your lawyers to have a fixed mindset?
yes, we kind of do. You're absolutely right. The culture of the law, and I'm so proud of you for knowing the word precedent, babe. The culture of the law is to look back and to say that is how we're going to apply to this situation. So we're never sort of saying, should we rearrange the way we examine that problem? Because we have to go to court based on what we've got here, or we have to go to a client based on a merger plan that is something that's tried and true. So yeah, we are a backward looking, precedent based profession. That said, we need to be able to switch, right? We need to be able to move back and forth on that spectrum, or we're going to be left in the dust because things are changing really rapidly right now. Technology is going gangbusters. I'm sure that your company is changing its technology all the time and trying to innovate and find new solutions every day.
Definitely. I feel like a lot of companies and just technology in general is advancing. And if there is a difference between how law is advancing in that technology and your clients are advancing, what's your perception of how lawyers are handling that challenge?
Yeah, I think we're really struggling with it. It's interesting too because there's some ethical opinions out, bar opinions that say we have to keep up with technology. We need to be competent in the technology that the law uses. And that's a big ask. That's a lot of time. Learning something, being competent at something, it means we have to be able to say, I don't know that yet, but I will take the time to learn it and incorporate it into my practice. And it's the same with our clients. Uh, if you were my client, I would need to understand how you're changing your technology. So it's it's a challenge.
And within that challenge, you're seeing that people are resorting to old solutions, backing away from it. Do you think a lot of that's due to the stigma of failure in the law industry? I mean, what
I
happens
do.
for you if you or a peer brought up a failure?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. We typically a failure means we blame somebody, right? We have to, our reaction to that is there's somebody who didn't have the skill set or the knowledge or who didn't do what they were supposed to do. So we tend to kind of shrink away from these and assign blame. And I would say that the biggest failing is that we don't necessarily post-mortem it, sit
Mm.
down, go through it. What about you? What happens at your work?
For me, my first approach when we encounter a failure is what went wrong in the process that we use. In the process that we go through, what happened? Not assigning it to a person, but what needs to change in that flow of things that we do. However, in my world, and I work in supply chain for an outdoor apparel company, static decision making is nearly impossible. We often can't rely on doing things the same way that we did them last month or the year before even.
What kind of an office environment do you work in?
I work in an environment that rewards ingenuity and community as well as togetherness. My office is able to combine everybody. We have financial analysts, and the people who test out our company's products' waterproof ability, all in the same building. Day in and day out, we have people who spend time in our rain room lab, which is as self explanatory as it sounds. It is a room that simulates a crap ton of rain. And they will put on a pair of hiking boots. They will jump into 4 inches of water and they will say, I wonder why my feet are wet. And if their only solution was to add more duck feathers, then we would never sell a single pair of shoes and all of our customers would have wet feet.
Where do they go when they can't solve this problem of getting wet feet?
I
Duck.
think that's the best part of my whole company is that they can go to anyone. Everyone is a resource to everybody. That came because my company's cultivated an environment where the proposition of a new solution, it's not seen as a challenge to the person who came up with the first solution. And I feel like that might not be common, especially in law. Are there instances that you see of people who might have a new solution, but they're scared to give it? And if they are, why do they fear it so much?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the sense of collaboration or that everybody might have something to add is very different in the law. Not always,
Mm.
but often. In that it's a lot more siloed. You can have big teams working on the same matter, but we sort of again we've got that idea that we have this sort of set of knowledge that we're really good at, and so we sort of put people into the you will do this, but that means that you don't really offer us any ideas about that because somebody else is doing that. Um, and there is this tendency, sort of, to, if something does go wrong, that we say, well, that must have been that person's fault. And there,
Hmm.
we don't sort of say, is this, we don't look at the processes and the systems as much as we're saying, you know,
This is the person who is
right,
to be blamed.
right,
Right.
right.
And
So,
earlier you'd brought up this great example I like that you used about the airline. I don't want my Delta pilot looking up how to land a plane differently, but I do want Delta to look into how can I make my planes better, faster, and they want to know how can I improve margins on tickets or delay times. But it feels like all of those things are so quantifiable and they can get those results. And in your industry, it doesn't feel like you can get those right away, especially with the huge scope of the projects. So if you can't get those tangible results that you're seeing right away, how do you implement this?
oh, that's a tough question and a good question. Might take a little growth mindset to answer. I would say there are two levels on which we can address it, right? One would be individual level. And part of that is just being aware of these two different mindsets and trying to understand which one we're operating in at any given time. Maybe you have a tremendous growth mindset attitude with your children, right? Who are
Mm.
curious and who are trying to grow. So maybe you can bring some of that back over into your work as a lawyer, like trying to remember those moments where curiosity led you somewhere exciting. You can take classes in something like painting, like Tess Blair, right? I mean, one of the most wonderful women who brought design thinking to the law and tried to get us all to adopt it. And then on a cultural or a firm level, I think it is trying to create more of an environment like the one that you're describing,
Mm.
where we are more aware, perhaps, that uh, we want to learn from these mistakes. We want to understand them at a deeper level rather than just sort of walking away and hoping that next time we have somebody smarter or better who won't make a mistake. Because hope is rarely a plan. So I think it is, just getting those ideas flowing sometimes or reaching out to a resource like ILTA, right? Who's here to help us with technology and the law. You don't have to do it on your own.
Well, that's awesome. What do you want people to do, Mom? What is your last thing other than having
Throw
managers like
out dumb
yours?
ideas. Be like, do it yourself, right? So I sometimes throw out terrible ideas. One, because I have them, and two, because when I do it, people will react and say that's a terrible idea. And it's true, it is. So come up with a better one and just be willing to create that sort of environment. Be okay. Think of failure as a learning opportunity, right? Try to get more of that red brain versus that green brain. And again, like come to your resources or talk to other people or try to figure out how you and your little community could begin to cultivate that growth mindset.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you talking to me about this. I will find some time next week, maybe more than 15 minutes, where we can focus on fixing my mind. And in the interim, I'll use resources like ILTA and I'll start opening my mind to more failures.
Love you, Kieran.
Thank you, Mama.